Welcome to the channel, Masters of Consciousness. Here, we go beyond appearances, beyond the surface of things, to touch the essence of what we truly are. Today, I invite you to explore a question that may seem simple, yet leads to the greatest discoveries. What is true freedom? Most people think freedom means having choices. Freedom is often associated with the absence of restrictions, the ability to do what you want, say what you think, go where you please. But is that real freedom? Is it enough to remove external limits to feel truly free inside? Ask yourself this honestly. Has there ever been a moment in your life where you had time, space, and choices, but still felt trapped? Trapped in your own mind, in your emotions, in your reactions? Because the deepest prison has no bars. The strongest chains are often invisible. True bondage doesn't come from the outside. It lives within, in unconscious patterns, in fears, in attachments and desires that seem to be yours, but are really just conditioning. True freedom doesn't begin when outer restrictions disappear. It begins when the inner ones do. When you're no longer a slave to your own impulses. When you're no longer reacting automatically. When you're no longer driven by emotions that rise and fall, but instead you remain present, aware, quiet inside. When your sense of self no longer depends on what's happening outside. This is where transformation begins. You start to see that you are not your thoughts. You are not your emotions. You are not your story, nor what has happened to you. You are the space in which all of that arises. And that space, that awareness, is already free by nature. It needs nothing to be itself. It fears no loss, because it holds on to nothing. It fears no future, because it lives only in now. It needs no control, because it trusts. This is the freedom that doesn't depend on circumstances, the freedom that cannot be bought or fought for, the freedom that simply is, when you are truly yourself. Freedom, the kind we're talking about, is not something you win. It's not a prize for effort. It's not something anyone else can give you, because anything that depends on something outside of you can be taken away. But this, what's truly yours, cannot be lost. And this is true freedom. It's not something you gain. It's something revealed, uncovered, remembered. You begin to realize that what's been imprisoning you your whole life wasn't circumstances or people or the system. It was your beliefs, your fears, fed unconsciously by your thoughts, your expectations of yourself and others. It was the endless stories you told yourself. I can't because I'm not enough. I have to become someone to deserve love. None of that was ever true. But you believed it, and that was enough to keep you trapped. Freedom begins the moment you stop believing in the thoughts that limit you. When you just watch them without becoming them. When you can say, okay, this thought appeared, but it's not me. It's just a cloud. I am the sky. And in that moment, space opens. In that space, you can choose consciously. You can feel fear and still act. You can feel sadness and still be present. You can face difficulty and not react from habit. It doesn't mean you stop feeling. It means you are no longer owned by what you feel. True freedom is not a life without pain. It's a life where pain doesn't define you, where you can experience everything, but nothing owns you. You are no longer driven by what's outside or inside. You are free because you are aware, because you are here, now, without story, without past, without need, just being. And that being is so full, so complete, it needs nothing added. We often think freedom means ease, but real freedom isn't the absence of challenge. It's the ability to meet challenge with an open heart and a clear mind. It's trusting yourself, not with egoic strength, but with the quiet confidence of presence, the kind of trust that says, whatever happens, I already am, and that is enough. It doesn't mean I do nothing, but what I do comes from peace, not fear, from love, not lack, from presence, not escape. To be free means to stop searching for yourself in the eyes of others, to stop living by expectations that aren't yours, because as long as you try to be someone the world will accept, you are not free. Even if admired, even if successful, Deep inside, there's tension, fear, insecurity, and that is not freedom. Freedom is the courage to be fully yourself, even if it's inconvenient for others, even if it means change, solitude, or silence, because your true self doesn't seek applause. It doesn't need to be liked. It is quiet, but certain, like a mountain, not because it is hard, but because it is true. And truth needs no defense. It simply is. And your truth, your inner truth, is freedom. Notice how often we postpone our freedom. I'll feel free when, I'll be free if this or that changes. But the future doesn't exist. It's just a thought. And as long as your freedom depends on something that hasn't happened yet, you are not free, because you're waiting, because you've placed your peace on conditions. And every condition is a kind of cage. Freedom doesn't wait. Freedom doesn't need anything to arrive. It comes the moment you stop and say, now, as I am. Even if things aren't perfect, even if you're still learning to trust, even if your outer life isn't what you hoped, you can be free now, inside. And when you are free within, the outer world begins to change. Not because you fight, but because your energy changes. Your presence becomes deeper, quieter, stronger. Freedom isn't always dramatic. Sometimes it's just the moment you sit in silence and stop running from yourself. When you realize you don't need to earn your right to exist. When you stop proving anything. You simply are. And in that simplicity, there is immense power. Because when you truly are, you begin to see yourself, others, life, and you see that everything is one, that you are not separate, that you don't have to control, because life carries you, and you are part of it, not the master of it. And from that freedom, love arises. Not the love that depends on behaviors or words or conditions, but love that simply flows, because it is your natural state of being. Because when nothing holds you back, your heart opens on its own. You don't need to force it. You just stop closing it. True freedom is not something to be achieved. It is something already within you, always has been. But it was covered up by layers of fear, belief, and identity. Freedom is not the goal. It is the return. A return to presence, to truth, to yourself. Freedom doesn't shout. It doesn't push. It doesn't need to fight. It is quiet, steady, and when you touch it, you won't need to speak of it. Others will feel it, in your stillness, in your eyes, in your way of being. A free person has nothing to prove. They simply live, and in that living there is lightness, there is clarity, there is a love without conditions. So if you ask what true freedom is, the answer isn't in words. It's in you, in your direct experience of being, in your breath, in this moment. You can feel it now. You can close your eyes and just be. No plan, no goal, no resistance. And maybe, in that simplicity, you'll feel that everything you've been looking for is already here. Freedom is coming home. Home to the space from which all else flows. The space that receives everything but holds nothing. Where you can feel everything, and yet nothing defines you. Where you are, not as someone, but as presence itself. And that presence is full, and that presence is free. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for walking this path with me. If these words stirred something in you, if you felt even for a moment that you touched something real, know that it wasn't just the words. It was a truth already within you, waiting for your return. I invite you to keep exploring. Here on the Masters of Consciousness channel, you'll find more episodes, more questions, more steps inward. If this message had meaning for you, please leave a comment, like the video, subscribe, and share it with someone who may also be longing for freedom, without yet knowing they already have it inside. See you in the next episodes, with love, presence, and deep respect. Thank you.